unsolved murder cases from the civil rights era of the 1950s and 60s. The goal of the Cold Case Initiative was to try and mete out justice in what seemed to be racially motivated killings that were never prosecuted. Not many 50-year-old cold cases ever get solved. Memories fade, evidence is lost, witnesses and suspects die or disappear. But that's not the case in the death of Lewis Allen, a mostly forgotten but historically significant murder that helped bring thousands of white college students to Mississippi in the Freedom Summer of 1964. The murder is still unsolved, but the case has never quite gone away, because the chief suspect is very much alive and walking the streets of a town called Liberty. The story will continue in a moment. Liberty, Mississippi is a small rural logging town not far from the Louisiana border. Liberty, Mississippi is a small rural logging town not far from the Louisiana border. The FBI believes that some people here have been keeping a dark secret for nearly 50 years, from one of the ugliest periods in the state's history.
You will not be alarmed for seeing past this time today.
It was a time when civil rights activists were beaten and arrested, when state and local politics were controlled by all-white citizens' councils, and when people like Lewis Allen were murdered in cold blood without redress.
You keep a photo of Lewis Allen on your desk?
I do.
What?
The case bothers me. I feel like we failed, and not just the FBI, but law enforcement.
Cynthia Dietl is a 15-year veteran of the FBI's Civil Rights Division, and until a few weeks ago was in charge of the Cold Case Initiative. Of the 100 unsolved, racially motivated murders she's been charged with investigating, none has been more promising or frustrating than Lewis Allen's.
Somebody knows something. Some husband came home with bloody clothing. Someone got drunk in a bar and said what he was doing last night. Someone knows something.
But in the early 1960s, people in and around Liberty knew to keep their mouths shut. A violent chapter of the Ku Klux Klan used cross-burnings, abductions, and murder to enforce the doctrine of white supremacy and to intimidate the black population, most of which lived in shacks with no electricity or plumbing and were not allowed to vote. Civil rights leaders like Robert Moses, who came south to help them register, were frequently the target of violence.
Liberty was not a place that I liked to go.
Why?
Because it was a place where you weren't safe if you were doing voter registration work.
It was in Liberty that Moses met Lewis Allen, a rough-hewn World War II veteran who walked proud and was not afraid to stand up for himself. He ran a small timber business, was one of the few blacks in Liberty to own his own land, and always wore a hat, which he considered a sign of self-respect. He was not the type to seek out trouble. Robert Moses says it found him.
He was at the wrong place at the wrong time. He saw something that happened, and he was deeply disturbed and affected by that, and so he had a basic life decision to make.
On September 25th, 1961, Allen was walking past this old cotton gin when he saw something that likely got him killed. Lewis Allen witnessed a powerful state legislator by the name of E.H. Hurst shoot and kill an unarmed black man named Herbert Lee. Allen told his friends and family that he and other eyewitnesses had been pressured into lying about the shooting, into saying that it was self-defense. Later, Allen decided that he needed to tell the truth. One of the people Lewis Allen told it to was Julian Bond, who was trying to register black voters in Mississippi for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. He would later become a legendary civil rights leader.
This was not a self-defense action by the state representative. This was out-and-out murder. That's all it was. But Lewis Allen agreed to lie about that.
Why do you think he lied?
He lied because he was in fear of his life. If he had implicated a powerful white man in a murder of a black man, then he was risking his life.
Did you encourage him to tell the truth?
I tried to encourage him to tell the truth, but, it was like saying, why don't you volunteer to be killed?
But Allen's wife would later testify that his conscience was clipping him, and he decided to tell FBI agents and the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights what really happened at the cotton gin. This document from FBI files says Allen changed his story and expressed fear that he might be killed. He asked for protection, but none was provided. Almost immediately, word began circulating in Liberty that Lewis Allen was prepared to change his testimony.
He was threatened as a result of the fact that he was going to change his statement, and that he did change his statement.
And the FBI was notified of those threats.
Yes.
Did the FBI do anything?
Yes, we referred that to local law enforcement authorities.
It's certainly possible to conclude the local law enforcement people were the ones behind the threats.
There is a theory out there that speaks to that, yes.
In fact, it's been the prevailing theory for some time, although the FBI cannot officially confirm it. There is a 1961 reference in the FBI file to a report that Allen was to be killed and the local sheriff was involved in the plot to kill him. And we found this 1962 letter from Robert Moses to Assistant Attorney General John Doar alleging the same thing. They're after him in Emmett County, it says, and makes reference to a plot by the sheriff and 7 other men. He was afraid of the sheriff's department.
I think he was, yes.
No, I think he was afraid of the Klan. Although they seem to be sort of the same thing in Liberty at this time.
I'm not sure I can say that.
Julian Bond was less circumspect.
The law enforcement, you were suspected they were members. If you wanted to be a mayor, a city councilman, a county commissioner, the sheriff, if you wanted to be in the legislature, you had to have some connection with the Klan.
And in the Emmett County Sheriff's Department, the person with the best connection was Deputy Sheriff Daniel Jones. His father was the exalted Cyclops of the local Klan, and Jones himself, according to this FBI document we found, was suspected of being a Klan member. Jones, who's alive and still resides in Liberty, was recently visited by FBI agents who wanted him to take a lie detector test. What was he like?
Well, mean.
Hank Allen was 17 years old when his father was killed, and he remembers Daniel Jones as his main tormentor. He says he watched Jones harass and repeatedly arrest his father on trumped-up charges, and one night beat him outside their home.
And he had handcuffed him, told him he was under arrest. So Dad asked for his hat. Told Dad, no, you can't go get your hat. Dad said, well, my son is on the porch, can he bring me my hat? He drawed back, he took a flashlight, and he struck my dad and broke his jawbone, handcuffed.
When he got out of jail, Lewis Allen did something that was unheard of for a black man in Mississippi. He went to the FBI and lodged a complaint against Deputy Sheriff Jones and testified before a federal grand jury. The case was thrown out, and the situation in Liberty continued to deteriorate.
They stopped selling Dad gas in the town. They stopped buying his logs. They just more or less just tried to blackball him.
It got to the point, the harassment and just him not being able to survive in Liberty, that he decided to leave and to go work in another state. And it's the night before he was due to leave that he is killed.
Lewis Allen was ambushed here on a cold night in January 1964 after getting out of his truck to open the cattle gate that led to his property. His son Hank was the one who found him.
I didn't know why he would park the truck in the middle of the driveway and leave it like that. And I climbed up in the truck. The headlights was real dim. And when I went to step down out the truck, I stepped on something. And that's when I stepped on my daddy's hand. He was lying up under the truck.
He was killed with 2 blasts of deer shot to the head. The investigating officer was none other than the newly elected sheriff, Daniel Jones, who Hank said made it clear to the family why his father had been murdered.
He told my mom that if Lewis had just shut his mouth, that he wouldn't be laying there on the ground. He wouldn't be dead.
You think Sheriff Jones did it?
Yes, indeed. By all means. If he didn't do it, he was the entrepreneur of it.
Jones told the newspapers he was unable to find a single clue. How would you characterize the investigation that Sheriff Jones conducted?
He did not develop any fingerprints, any physical evidence, and he never developed any suspects.
Not a great investigation.
Probably could have done more.
And the same might be said about the FBI at the time. It had limited jurisdiction over civil rights murders and little inclination to investigate them. In fact, it's not clear that anyone investigated Lewis Allen's murder until 1994, when Plater Robinson, an historian at the Southern Institute at Tulane University,